So today we are talking coping with stress and anxiety. And we're going to look at some of the ins and outs, and maybe I have the opportunity to give you guys a different look or insight into what stress and anxiety is all about. So what is stress and anxiety to you? Where in your lives does stress and anxiety show up? Just to get an idea of what you guys think stress and anxiety is. How do you think it shows up? When does it show up? Maybe give some examples.
In my case, I realized actually yesterday I was eating too much sugar. And I think maybe it's related to stress and anxiety. But the trigger for that was I started to take, it's not medication, it's kind of some pills that cause Serenogen that you buy at discount. It's Metagenics, you buy out of the shelf. And I see the difference because I use a plate to sleep during the night because my jaw is displaced. And I've been in treatment since the beginning of the year. And I realized I was tensioning my jaw a lot. So then a friend of mine told them about those pills. And I see the difference now. But for me, it was eating sugar, not sleeping well, always waiting things to happen faster in a different pace.
Okay, that's a very powerful observation. Does anybody? Hey, Elka, nice of you to join us again today. You're like the one that shows up for every session.
Hello, everybody.
So, Elka, we're having a discussion about what you understand stress or anxiety to be, how you feel it shows up in your life, and maybe give some examples of where you've picked up on it or noticed it.
To me, that I should answer.
Yeah, you can, and I'd love to hear Londeka's view as well.
Okay, so, well, I must say having 3 small children sometimes causes quite a bit of stress, and then
Yes.
juggle kids and career at the same time, yeah, that maybe causes sometimes stress. And how how does it show up? Maybe that I'm not concentrated because I try to juggle everything at the same time. Yeah, and this is how like the stress then really comes out. And how does it show up? I'm getting impatient.
Okay, spot on. So you're picking up that it's affecting your life work balance and throwing you off a little bit there. Juliana was telling us that with her, she's noticed that she clenches her jaw, and she's noticed a correlation between the amount of sugar she consumes and then how that affects stress and anxiety. What about you, Londeka?
Well, for me, I know that I get really stressed when I have a task that I need to complete and I'm battling with the task. So I get stressed and I start to have severe headaches, and also I sleep a lot. So that's when I notice that, yeah, I'm stressed and I'm anxious, and yeah, basically.
Okay, so it affects your sleep. That's where you're picking up on it most. Is that because you have a lot of thoughts and your mind is racing, or just overall not necessarily thinking anything, but you're not sleeping as well as you'd like to?
Yeah, but yeah, insomnia, not being able to sleep, thinking about things a lot.
Okay. All right, awesome. So I love the fact that you guys have used the word stress in the correct context, because often stress and anxiety seems to be used interchangeably. So let's first have a look at what stress actually is. So the definition of stress is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation or an external stressor. And as Elke said, when she's dealing with the 3 kids, sometimes she notices that throws her off, which is the difficult situation, and that makes her impatient. It is, in fact, an absolutely natural human response to something that we feel is potentially dangerous, a threat, or something where we feel out of control that disrupts how we engage with our space or an environment. And it's normally short-lived or momentary. It's not an ongoing thing. It comes in snippets. And of course, everyone experiences stress to some degree, but the important thing is how we actually respond to that stress. So a typical example, I think we've all been in the traffic and someone cuts us off. If we can see it for what it is, there's that moment of, oh, that was almost our life that we lost. But then we calm down and life goes on. Whereas somebody else might be triggered so badly that they start chasing the person down and pull them off the road and start screaming and shouting at them. And that is more of a reaction and not such a healthy way of engaging with that particular stress. Okay? So how we respond to stress is what really defines our overall well-being. And that is how stress can actually then link into anxiety. Because anxiety, on the other hand, is a feeling of dread or fear or ongoing uneasiness. It's a normal reaction to stress. It can show up randomly. It can sometimes have no triggers where all of a sudden you have like a panic attack and you kind of don't know where it came from. But that feeling of dread or fear or uneasiness tends to linger around over a longer period of time. So unlike a stressor which shows up, we get annoyed, we deal with it, we move on. Anxiety tends to hang around with us like that friend we don't really want with us all the time. Does that make sense to everyone? Just so that we can get a basic understanding of the difference between the two. So when we're stressed or anxious, we always have that feeling of being on edge. We struggle to be in the present moment, and we struggle to enjoy the moment. We struggle to relax. And even when we do, we're worrying about something, or there's something in the back of our mind that feels like stops us from being able to recharge or get refreshed. Like Londeka was saying, she has disrupted sleep. So you can see by that somewhere in the background, there's some stories running there that don't allow her to actually rest. It obviously affects our relationships. It can be how it affects our relationship with ourselves, how we look at ourselves, our self-esteem. Maybe we feel we're not worthy, or in one of the previous discussions we had on imposter syndrome, all that kind of stuff comes from either stress in the moment or an ongoing anxiousness, but also our relationships with significant others. I think we all know that when we're surrounded by someone who's always stressed or anxious, it's not very nice to be around them. And vice versa, we can create an awareness that if we're always stressed or filled with anxiety, it's not that pleasant to be around ourselves. So our relationships suffer. And when you're constantly in overdrive and you're constantly worrying and you're constantly stressed and you're constantly anxious, it's obvious to see that we can easily get burnout, because people that tend to be stressed or anxious tend to constantly be trying to be perfect and be 10 steps ahead to try and control the situation. So therefore, we never ever really at ease. And that word ease is the most important thing, because when we're not feeling at ease and you ongoingly do not feel at ease, you actually create sickness. And that's where the word dis-ease comes from. So if we're constantly in a state of dis-ease, we manifest sickness in our body. Okay, so it sucks. And why don't we stop? We know that anxiety and stress doesn't serve us, so why don't we stop it? And the very simple answer is because how can we address something that is not in our conscious mind or awareness right now? Because you see, when stress or anxiety pops up in a way that doesn't serve us, there's something from our past that we are unconsciously bringing into this present moment that we haven't let go of. So we're reacting, or we are responding to the current situation in a much bigger way than it demands or asks for. So the key really is to bring whatever is in the unconscious or the subconscious into our conscious mind. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to go for years and years of therapy and start dredging up the past and cry and relive it like it was yesterday. I'll show you some tips and tools later on down the slides. But the important thing is to be aware that whenever we are stressed and it's not momentary and it turns into anxiety, the first thing to think is that we are bringing something from the past into this present moment. So this present moment is becoming much bigger than what it really is. Okay. So, the thing keeps hiding. So what are the symptoms that you think are associated with stress and anxiety? You've mentioned some already, like lack of sleep, getting irritable and impatient, clenching your jaw. Are there any other things that you can think of that you associate with stress and anxiety? Think body, mind, and spirit.
I think you mentioned about self-esteem. You have a problem of your self-image, or you don't think you're able to do things that you normally do. You feel like you need to prove yourself all the time.
Spot on, yes. Anyone else? Elke, Lundeka?
Yeah, so I think physical symptoms are also really like a higher heartbeat or higher heart rate, that you can feel that your body is in tension.
Absolutely.
I think I had like major hair loss and skin issues and those sorts of things as well, which I know, well, my doctor says was linked to that, and it probably was.
Yes, 100%. Lundeka, can you think of any others?
Mention headaches.
Yes,
migraine.
headaches and migraines, absolutely. Okay, let's look at a few more. So have a look here which ones relate to you or that you've experienced. So sweating and perspiration, suddenly getting those hot flashes where you can feel all of a sudden you're sweating. When you want to shake someone's hand, you're like, oh, don't shake my hand because it's all wet. Where you feel restless, you start to breathe a lot quicker. Sometimes you can even feel lightheaded because of that. You become more rigid and tense. It usually sits here in your neck and shoulder muscles where you, Raksha, would you let Blessed in?
Yep.
Yeah, for some reason I can't click on the on that thing when we're in presentation mode. So tight muscles and rigidness in the neck. We can be moody, like moodiness can show up, where we feel overwhelmed or we feel like life is too much for us to handle. As already mentioned, a rapid heartbeat. You can get those heart palpitations. We can talk faster than we normally do because we feel under pressure and anxious. Panic attacks, where you feel you can't breathe, your chest is closing in on you. Lundeka's already mentioned disrupted sleep, and extreme versions of that would be insomnia. Controlling behavior. Now, I highlighted this because you'll see later down the line that control is linked to fear. But the minute that we start feeling like we want to control a situation, there's something beneath that control that we're trying to prevent from happening. And we'll discuss that a bit later. So whenever you pick up, you might look calm and collected, but the minute you find yourself stepping into a controlling kind of vibe where you maybe want to be perfectionistic or you get a little bit bossy, then stress and anxiety is starting to creep up in quite a camouflaged manner. Also, uncontrolled anger or irritability. A lot of people, when they see somebody who's angry, they just read that as anger, but that anger could actually be stress and anxiety disguised. As Londeka's already mentioned, headaches and migraines are an absolute sign of stress and anxiety. Upset tummies, things like IBS, constipation, ulcers in the stomach or in the intestines, autoimmune diseases. Raksha mentioned skin problems. Raksha, there's Mr. Ndlovu is trying to get in, or Ms. Ndlovu.
I did add already.
Okay. Yeah, skin problems like eczema. Eczema very often also a autoimmune disease, but ulcers, heart disease, skin problems, hair loss, all of these things are actual physical manifestations in the body that are consequences from stress and anxiety. High blood pressure, sudden weight gain or weight loss, and even eating disorders like anorexia or bulimia, binge eating. These kind of things are also associated with stress and anxiety. And depression often goes hand in hand with anxiety as well. So where stress was the starting point that possibly developed into anxiety, when we feel stuck in that, we can become hopeless and depressed. And of course, emotional fatigue or adrenal burnout, because you will notice, and I don't want to go too much into the physiology or the hormones and stuff, but just to make it relatable, again, if we take the example where someone cuts in front of us at the traffic, or maybe we trip and we almost fall, you get that immediate sort of hot flush, a little bit of sweat that comes over the body. You can feel your heart rate increase. And that right there is an example of how your adrenal gland releases adrenaline and cortisol. And that is a natural human response to a threat or something that startled us. The problem is if we've grown up in environments, or we have a partner who's abusive, or we're constantly under a lot of stress at work or in life, then those hormones don't actually come back down. And when we're constantly in a state of stress and anxiety, and those hormones are constantly raised, you cannot relax and sleep, and therefore you get emotional fatigue and what's called as adrenal burnout. That's what actually causes that. Everyone with me so far? Has any other symptoms popped up that maybe we haven't mentioned, or that you'd like to discuss or unpack a little bit further? Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you can see from these symptoms that stress and anxiety really affect all aspects of our being. So the body, which has physical symptoms, oops, that's a spelling error there on the left, that's supposed to be mental or your mind state, and of course your spirit and your soul. And ignoring these symptoms is what ultimately leads to what is commonly known as anxiety disorders. And you would have heard of things like generalized anxiety disorder, or people that become afraid to go into a social setting, they develop social anxiety, or panic disorders where they have panic attacks frequently that come out of nowhere. Phobias such as agoraphobia, where you don't want to be in closed spaces or around people or in a boardroom. OCD, where there's so many different forms of OCD, cleanliness, perfection, separation anxiety, where I don't want to be without certain people or without certain things, or I need a pet around me all the time. Mutism, which often pops up in children, where children are afraid to speak. But I think that we can all relate to those moments in a boardroom or around people that we don't feel safe or comfortable with, where we withhold and we don't speak or we don't say what we want to say because we're scared. Of course, PTSD. I think everybody's heard of PTSD, people that were in the Vietnamese War, for example. That's the most common case study, came back with severe PTSD, didn't know how to reintroduce themselves into normal life. But one that isn't actually in the diagnostic or the psychiatric diagnostic tool is complex PTSD. And even in South Africa, where we are born into a world where we have to watch over our shoulder because we're afraid to get hijacked, or we're living behind electric fencing, or we don't know, is it going to be dark just now because of Eskom, or is there going to be a water outage? These are all examples of complex PTSD, because when we're in an environment that doesn't feel safe or predictable, it brings up CPTSD within us. So to a large degree, the Western world that we are living in implies that we all have a level of unhealthy stress and anxiety in our lives. So all of these disorders involve persistent fear or worry that hold us back from being able to function or have the ability to function and do our daily chores, relationships, work, and so forth. Can you maybe think of any other ways where stress and anxiety affect our ability to function in life or work or in our relationships? How it shows up as a problem?
Maybe affects the way you express your emotions, or you have difficulties to express yourself properly.
Absolutely. And bottling up emotions is a big problem in the Western world. We don't know how to healthily release anger or sadness, so we bottle it all up, which affects stress and anxiety levels. Absolutely. Raksha, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just sometimes people become a bit antisocial and recluse, and they don't want to engage with other people, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And that in an extreme form leads to the social anxiety or the generalized anxiety, and even things like agoraphobia. So the reason why I put this in here is because I want people to understand what causes this. Because very often if you go and see a doctor or a therapist or a psychiatrist, they may diagnose you, and without the understanding or the theory behind this, you may think this is a disease that I am not in control of. But these are extreme forms of stress and anxiety. And if you understand it, you can find your way back and also release and relieve yourself from it eventually without meds. Okay. So all of these symptoms basically have two main things in common. And I want to just see whether you guys maybe picked up on what it is from the discussions we've had so far. If anyone is brave enough to take a guess what you think all of these symptoms and stress and anxiety have underpinning them.
I can maybe lack of support, emotional support.
I think that's part of the healing. Even people with a lot of support could still suffer quite severely with stress and anxiety, and even as far as going to suicide, even if they have a support system. Yeah. But it is important to have a support system, yes. Raksha, you want to give it a go?
Maybe is it sometimes we don't want to admit that or acknowledge that we have something going on, and so we shy away from either asking for help or speaking up about it?
I'd like to say that that's a third one then, yes, because the denial of it, and I think I mentioned it in a few slides back, when we're not aware of it, so when it's in our subconscious or our unconscious, then we can't actually deal with it. So it's important to bring it into our conscious to be able to deal with it. So that would be a third one. Yeah, but let's assume that it has come to our conscious. What have they got in common? All right, let's move on. The first one is that there's a perception of being in or reacting to or addressing the present moment. Like when Alka said, there's the kids and they stress her out. There's a perception that it's in this moment that we are being present. But whenever stress or anxiety pops up, the trigger is in the present moment, but if our reaction to it is not healthy or is extreme or is over the top or is dysfunctional, then we are bringing something from the past that we've connected with whatever is happening into this moment, into the moment now. And the important thing to therefore establish is that when we are stressed or anxious, we're actually in the future, because we're trying to avoid something from happening, something from going wrong, something that we fear, an outcome. So we're actually unconsciously in the future trying to avoid something from happening. We're no longer in the present moment. So Alka, with that as a definition, if you take the moment where you start getting irritable with your 3 kids when they're getting a bit too much, what is it that you could be fearing in the future?
Not really sure. I don't have an answer to this. Don't know.
So can I brainstorm with you and see how it resonates?
All right.
Maybe that you're not going to get through everything you need to do with the kids in order to get to what you need to get to before the night is over. Or maybe they're running around like crazy and you're like, oh, there's an accident waiting to happen here and you don't know how to calm the situation.
More the first one.
Okay, so can you see how when you just step back from it a second, there's something that we're trying to prevent in the future whenever we are stressed. If I go back to the example of us in the car and somebody cut in front of us, you can see that in that split second, we could have died. There could have been a horrendous consequence. And that's why our heart rate and everything pops up. I see that somebody put something in the chat. I don't know if it's a question.
No question.
Okay, is it fine? I don't need to consider it.
You're good.
All right. So that then brings up this quote that I think you all will enjoy. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you are living in the future. And if you're at peace, you're living in the present. I love that quote. The other thing that everything has in common here is that it all is underpinned by the emotion of fear. I am not safe. Another way of saying that is I'm not in control, which immediately gives us a sense of being destabilized, and unconsciously the emotion of fear is popping up. So whether we take the example of the car and our life flashing before us, I was scared because that could have been worse. If we take the example with Elka and the kids, same story. Like, how am I going to get through everything that I need to? What if I drop the balls on something that I have to address? Landeka mentioned not sleeping. The reason why her mind is running overtime with all of those thoughts and she's not able to sleep is she's trying to possibly think about everything that needs to get done, or when she's in that presentation tomorrow, are people going to actually be able to respond to that in a favorable way? So fear is sneaking in. I see another message has popped up.
No, I was just saying to people, if they had any questions, to please pop them in the chat or raise their hand, because we love an interactive session.
Okay, awesome. Yes, please. Absolutely. All right. So we're living in the future and we're not aware that fear is creeping in. And of course, when fear creeps in, everything starts to derail. So being aware of when fear creeps in allows us to get back into our center. So stress and anxiety is our usually unconscious attempt, whether functionally or dysfunctionally, healthily or unhealthily, trying to create or ensure safety that is not reliving our traumatic or painful past, trauma, ridicule, criticism, humiliation, abuse, or other, in the present moment, in the hope of protecting ourselves from a potential or perceived, real or not, pain or threat from the past in the future. Okay. And all of this starts in a split second with our relationship between our emotions and our feelings. Ooh, emotions and feelings. Everyone's like, ah, run, Forrest, run, because we don't want to talk about emotions and feelings. But let's have a look at emotions and feelings. What is the difference between emotions and feelings? So emotions are built into us. We're actually born with them. If you look at a baby, when a baby can't think, can't speak, it's a few days, a few weeks old, you will see anger on a baby's face. In fact, the entire complex and neighborhood will know about it. You will know when a baby is sad. In fact, the entire complex and possibly even the whole town will know when the baby is sad. If you try and put something in a baby's mouth that it doesn't like, it will let you know that it is disgusting. It will spit it out. If a baby is happy, that face lights up, those eyes light up, the whole world, whether you speak that family's language or not, will understand that that baby is filled with joy and happiness. If that baby is scared, you will see on the face, the eyes are big, the body tenses up, fear sets in. That baby will show you when it is afraid. And when a baby is, what is the last one? Oh, shocked or surprised. If you clap your hands or something, you'll see the baby will have a sense of shock and surprise. And if you look at most living animals, whether dogs or cats, babies, humans, no matter where you come from in the world or what your background, what your religion or what your race, these 6 emotions tend to be universally understood amongst all animals and living things. So they are built into our DNA. It's part of our makeup as a living being. And they were designed by God or the universe to be able to help us survive so that we can quickly react to triggers from our external world. And they immediately affect our physical state. So this is important to know because emotions are the things that don't lie. Emotions, if you compare it to the compass, are the things that direct us to our true north, our true self. Feelings, on the other hand, are either aligned with our emotions or disaligned with our emotions. If they are aligned, then when I am feeling joy, so when I have the emotion of joy and the feeling of joy, they tend to be in the same pot. But if the feelings of joy at some point had a horrible traumatic experience associated with them, then what happens is we might have the emotion of joy, but our brain remembers, but joy was painful. So every time we feel joy, we may shy away from joy in order to prevent that pain or that experience that we had endured all that time ago. So feelings are actually mental associations or beliefs or experiences or memories that we've attached to those emotions from our past. So feelings are sparked by emotions, but the way our brain interprets them isn't always accurate. And that right there is very often the root cause of stress and anxiety. Okay. So therefore, it's important to note from this slide that feelings cannot always be trusted. You have to check in with the story that you're telling yourself. Is that aligned with what my body is telling me? Because feelings, if they're not aligned with your emotions, if we compare it back to a compass, will take you to magnetic north and can lead you very, very far off your essence and who you truly are. Any questions on this slide? Any contributions or questions? When your cameras are off, I can't tell if I'm putting you guys to sleep or you're actually taking in and enjoying what I'm saying. All right, so if we put that into a little picture form, then emotions come from our body and feelings come from our mind. They're triggered by the emotions in our body, but they're interpreted by our mind. Now, people who have experienced trauma or who've had a traumatic background or upbringing, or maybe didn't have the love and nurturing that they needed from both parents, maybe didn't have both parents, maybe had traumatic experiences like rapes, or were under a lot of pressure to finish school, had financial stress, maybe didn't always have food on the table. These are all sorts of traumatic experiences that start to shape and affect the way we interpret our emotions. Even things like imposter syndrome, where the media puts into our mind how a woman should be, how a man should be, how we should look, etc., etc., etc. All of these things are put into our head and can disconnect us from our body and our truth. And the stress and the anxiety that starts to show up is the conflict between what our body is trying to tell us, which is the truth, and what our mind is sabotaging us to believe is the truth. So when we look at emotions and feelings, a tool that you can use is when you reflect back, you know that there is an external stimuli, for example, the car that cut in front of us. How we respond to that is we swerve. When we look at our physical state, our heart went up, we were sweating, we got heart palpitations, we got a flush of red across our face. And the feelings is now the how we engage with that. Phew, that was close. I'm safe. Take some nice deep breaths and I'm calm again. Or then also I'm going to go get him and I start chasing him and stuff, because we want retribution and revenge for that situation, which is then a dysfunctional way of dealing with that, which is probably related back to how our parents dealt with those situations, or somebody that we valued, that we witnessed, and how they dealt with those situations. So the problem, as you can see, comes in when we don't know how to listen to our body or our emotions, and we disconnect from those emotions that are supposed to take us to who we truly are, and that instead we listen to our head and our feelings, which are attached to narratives and stories which may not be accurate and sabotage us and take us away from ourselves, or like I like to call it, magnetic north, and therefore way off track. And we do that because it's our unconscious attempt to keep safe, to keep fear at bay and suppressed and packed away down there, because our mind or our memory has connected painful recollections to it, and we don't know how to deal with it. Okay, so I want to give you two examples here. Imagine a little boy, he's 3 or 4 years old, and he's in the garden and he's watching his sister, who's about 6, 7 years old, and she's dressed in this pink tutu and she's wearing a unicorn hat and she's got sparkles and she's running around and she's just blissfully joyful, loving every second of this. And later in the afternoon, this little boy finds this outfit that the little girl was wearing, and this little boy puts that outfit on because he's 3 years old, very naive. He's still very connected with his body and his emotions. So he saw the joy in his sister and he wants a bit of that joy. So he puts that outfit on and he starts running around going, like his sister, and he's also having an absolute ball of a time. But dad comes home and he's very homophobic and he's very traditional, and he's very closed-minded, and he sees this little boy running around with this pink tutu on, and just blissfully joyful, and starts shouting at this boy saying, you stupid, that is not how boys behave, you are not gay, slaps him over the head, tells him to go to his room and think about what he's done. That is an example of where that little boy at 3 years old can suddenly associate the emotion of joy and happiness with pain, physical pain because he got hit over the head, ridicule and confusion and humiliation, and even worse, abandonment because he got sent to his room to be all alone and punished. Now, without awareness of that, or without somebody who would help that little boy make sense of what happened and why, that little boy could grow up to carry that with him for the rest of his life into adulthood and sabotage joy every time joy pops up in his life. So whenever someone is good to him, whenever he's laughing, or whenever people around him are laughing, he could sabotage those relationships, those situations, because out of fear that he's going to be abandoned or humiliated or hit over the head. Okay. Another example could be a little girl or a little boy who desperately want mom or dad's attention, but mom or dad are workaholics. They're always very busy. They don't really have much time. They've got a babysitter most of the time, or a caretaker, or the kid gets dropped off at a care school. And in those moments where that little boy or that little girl does have a moment with mom or dad and goes, "Mom, Dad, I want to share you this. Look, I got good marks at school." The minute that mom or dad dismiss that child or criticize him or say, "Why didn't you get full marks?" or "Can't you see I'm busy? Go to your room," or shame him or punish him or violate him or hit him over the head, or worse, give him silent treatment to punish him because I've told you 53 times to leave me alone when mommy's working. Again, can you see how that would create a disconnect between the intention or the emotion of wanting to connect and feel joy with the feelings of confusion, violation, punishment, and whatnot? So that little boy or girl may grow up to be an adult who doesn't want to speak his or her truth out of fear that he or she is going to be humiliated, out of fear that he or she might be rejected, out of fear that he or she might be ridiculed or physically hurt. Does anybody else have some examples, or is any of this relating to maybe some of your own personal experiences, if you're willing to share? No, we all just want to know how to deal with stuff. Okay, awesome. So then really healing comes in two ways. I think the conventional way of healing, as we all know, is you can get medicated. And there is a place for medication. There is a place for psychiatric drugs, anti-anxiety meds, meds that keep you calm so that you don't stress out. It's important, however, that you want to be aware that medication does not resolve the problem. What it does is that it takes the edge off, and it just gives us the space. Maybe sometimes we don't have time for therapy or talking or whatnot, and we need to work, we need to deal with this, we need to make money. So sometimes we need those meds to get through it. But it's important to realize that meds do not resolve the problem. With that in mind, if meds take the edge off so that we can function, can you see how addictions are born in this exact space? And a lot of people think that addictions are just things like prescribed medications or alcohol or cigarettes or food or sweets or porn or sex or illegal drugs. But all of these are just desperate attempts to suppress the fear or the pain or whatever it is that's popping up that we don't actually know how to deal with emotionally. So we look
Veronique,
for a crutch. I see,
yeah.
Yeah, I do see that. I just want to finish point one, and then
Cool.
then I will listen to that question. Thank you, Raksha. So it's important to realize, because a lot of people think addictions are just those illegal things, those things that we've been, again, conditioned to see as bad. But addictions are anything from cleanliness, from control, from alcohol, cigarettes, food, porn, and so forth. And these are all things that we use as an attempt to not deal with the hard emotions, to take the edge off, to keep ourselves in denial, to dissociate from what's really going on that wants our attention. Ndamulelo. Oof, I hope I'm not debaucherizing your name.
Yeah.
Hi, ladies. Good evening, Veronica. Well, I'm in load shedding. You will probably not see me.
You're very
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah, it's Ducky. Okay, my question, sorry to take you back. My question is on feelings and emotions. I
Okay.
just want to know that you see there's people who are just nonchalant, either a friend or even a parent or a partner. They're just quiet about maybe their emotions or their feelings. Maybe, for example, say even if you're looking good, they might not even tell you. Or if you do something, you just find maybe a congratulation message from someone, then they will then after say it, or oh, actually congratulations, because they had somebody who said it. So I want to know, is this something that's stemming from their childhood? Are they just disconnected from their feelings? It's something that sort of baffles me. Yeah.
I think what you're asking about is people that are emotionally unavailable, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so emotional unavailability is a form of anxiety, which is a form of extreme or ongoing enduring stress. And you probably find that it is, I mean, we don't know, there's many different reasons for it, but generally speaking, you will find that they've grown up in an environment where the parents didn't actually know how to teach that child how to name their feelings or how to connect with their feelings and their emotions. And if they did, for example, if a kid, let's say, threw an angry tantrum, which is absolutely normal and natural for a child to throw an angry tantrum, if we had parents that didn't know how to deal with their own anger, when they see somebody else that's angry, they are likely to punish them, ignore them, silent treat them, or do some of the things that we've mentioned in previous conversations. And then that child learns that I must keep quiet about my emotions. I mustn't say anything, because if I get it wrong, it comes with a painful response, like ridicule, like humiliation, like punishment, like pain, like abandonment, like silent treatment and whatnot. So those children learn very quickly to dissociate and kind of go into themselves, and they tend to be what's called dissociative. So then everyone, all living things want to connect. Us human beings, we're social creatures. We want to connect. We want to connect mentally. We want to connect spiritually. We want to connect physically. Our bodies, mind, and soul are designed that way. If we don't, it's probably because we don't know how. And linking it back to this point one that we were discussing now, very often those people tend to develop addictions, because they very often will develop addictions like alcoholism or smoking weed or binge eating and whatnot, because they so desperately want to express, they so desperately want to connect, they want to share their emotions and their feelings, but it's been too painful in the past. So in order for me to say keep safe, I just keep quiet, because if I speak, it might be wrong, and I don't know how to deal with that if it's wrong. So let me rather just keep quiet, or I'll wait for somebody else to say something, then see how that is received, and then I might say what somebody else said if it looks safe to go there. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Yes, it does. I'm answered. Thank you.
Okay. Just so you know, there is resolve. It can be solved. And you'll find, I don't know if you're speaking about a partner here or not, but very often people that are more connected with their feelings and their emotions will tend to draw people into their life that are not. And that is usually the essence of a codependent relationship. And we'll discuss that in one of our future sessions. But the underlying wound is, I'm not safe to be me. It's just looked at from a different perspective. And that's why those two people come into each other's world, because the wound is the same. How they engage with it is not. So they tend to project onto each other what they want from each other, because they don't know how to communicate it and express it. But there is light at the end of the tunnel if you do tackle it. Okay. So process of healing, the first way is that there is medication and there is a place for it, because sometimes we do need something to take the edge off. And sometimes when we are stressed, Woolworth chocolate mousse is amazing. So yes, there is a place for these kind of medications, but they do not resolve the problem. The only way to really heal from stress, but more so anxiety, is to address and understand the underlying emotion of fear, not the feeling of fear, the emotion of fear, because it's trying to draw our attention to something that we are afraid of or that we are avoiding. And if we tackle that and reassign a new meaning so that the feeling is aligned with the emotion, then we liberate ourselves. The stress and anxiety comes from the disconnect between the emotion of fear and the story that we've attached to it. So for example, the emotion of fear is, oh, I've got a big presentation tomorrow to 50 people. The story we've attached to it, what if it goes wrong and everyone laughs at me? And that causes all this overwhelm, anxiety, stress, to the point that the person may get tummy problems, not sleep the night before the meeting, show up half asleep, and that presentation is going to be a difficult task to tackle because of all of that stress and anxiety and all of those stories we told ourselves that we're feeling. And then the person does the presentation, and it actually goes really well, and everyone applauds the person, and yay, all is well. And they realize, oh, okay, that actually went quite well. So there's an example of how if we just knew it's important for me to do well, and I'm afraid that I won't do well, then we can tackle that quite easily. But if we're not aware of the fear and we get stuck in the stories of the feelings, we can sabotage our own success in that example. For example. Okay, so learning how to do that, learning how to actually get to the root emotion and then reprogramming ourselves to assign meanings and feelings to those emotions that serve us is the crux to the healing of stress and anxiety. So to overcome fear, stress, or anxiety, we need to relearn how to feel safe to be ourselves. Somewhere along our life's journey, it wasn't safe to be ourselves because we got bollocked or ridiculed or humiliated or teased or punished or abandoned or left behind. And our head is attempting to keep us safe. So it tells us stories to try and prevent that pain from happening again. So we need to learn, or rather relearn, how to feel safe to be ourselves, safe to exist, and get that sense of security that you are more than enough and capable and whole to be you in this world, and uniquely you. You don't have to be like anybody else. And to do that, one has to obviously unlearn the dysfunctional patterns. So you need to be aware of your patterns and the things that you've associated with that in your brain, and assign serving meanings to the 5 or 6 core emotions so that you won't shut down, you won't burst out into irrational anger, you won't run away and dissociate and shut off and not give compliments when you want to, and you won't do things that you don't want to do just to try and keep everybody around you happy, because those are 4 states that are dysfunctional ways of trying to avoid pain from not knowing how to deal with fear, stress, or anxiety. So it really starts with, first of all, reconnecting with your body. And if you'll notice in this circle over here, this is just one example, you can find millions on the internet. But as I've mentioned before, there are 6 core emotions. Depending on where you look, sometimes they say 9, but there's 6 that everyone agrees on. And you can see there's fear, anger, sadness, surprise or shock, joy. Those are the main ones. Okay. There's also disgust, which I see is not on this one, which I would have preferred instead of love, because love is debatable. It's not always a feeling. Okay, but never mind. We won't get into that today. So when you ask yourself throughout the day, what am I feeling right now? And what is the emotion that it's connected to? The way to do that, for example, Elke was saying earlier she sometimes gets irritable with her kids. So if you look right there in the middle, in the second circle, there's irritable. So that is the feeling. So by naming the feeling, I am irritable, what is the core emotion that's linked to? It's anger. But in Elke's case, you can see that irritability could also be fear. So this is a starting point, but the work needs to happen with the individual. So you ask yourself, what am I feeling? I am feeling overwhelmed. What is the core emotion associated with that overwhelm? It's anger. Because why? Because I feel compromised. I feel like I'm taking on way too much work than I'm getting paid for. Or I'm feeling overwhelmed. What is the core emotion? Fear. Why fear? Because I'm afraid I'm not going to get through the work and I'm going to get into trouble from my boss tomorrow. So can you see how they can play out in different scenarios? But the first step to healing is to ask yourself often, what am I feeling right now? And you cannot think this, you have to go into your body. It starts with the story, I'm feeling irritable, but that starts to take you into your body. What is the core emotion right now? If you find yourself going like this, you almost know it's anger. If you feel yourself tensing up and your eyes are getting bigger and your pupils are dilated, you probably know it's fear. If you want to retract from the whole world and go sit by yourself in a room and cry and you really want to connect, but everyone just irritates you, so they just all leave you alone, that's probably sadness. Joy we generally don't have a problem with. We all seem to know what joy is about. Okay, but that's the first step, reconnecting with your body, getting out of your head and the stories it's telling you, because those were all indoctrinated into you by possibly well-meaning parents, but who set you off onto your magnetic north by TV, by books, by horrible, painful experience and so forth, and getting into your body and saying, what am I? What is the emotion that's actually going on below that all? And the way to tell is that an emotion doesn't have a story attached. I am angry, I am sad, I am happy, I'm scared. It's very simple. There's no stories. But you can see if you say, oh, I'm so frustrated because so-and-so, blah, 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 there's a story attached to it, then you know it's a feeling. And you can check in and go, is this true or is this a story that I'm telling myself? And that's already the first step to empowerment. Alrighty. The other, oopsie daisy, the other way is to unpack the trigger, and now the reveal is there. So, all right, forgive me. I got the animation wrong here, so ignore number 6 for now. But it's to unpack the trigger, because what we want to do is rewire your brain. And you can do this without therapy. You can do this for yourself. All you need is a little journal book like this one, and these 6 questions that I'm going to give you now, and you can start to rewire your brain. So how it works is like this. The first thing you do is you name the trigger or the threat. So whatever it is that popped up in your life, person, thing, environment, promotion that's coming up, meeting that's coming up, presentation that's coming up, or the car that cut in front of you, or the accident that was had, or the breakup that happened, or mom that always just winds you up every time you meet her. Whatever the trigger is that brings up strong emotions, okay? You first name that. The second thing to do is to then, as we've already discussed, name the feeling or the feelings. There may be more than 1 or 2 feelings, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And then every time ask, okay, what is the core emotion underpinning this feeling and this story that I'm telling myself, as we've just discussed in the previous slide. The third thing you want to do is then define in detail how your body or your state of your body reacted to that trigger. So take note of how you physically reacted. Were your arms and hands going like this? Did you get verbally abusive? Did your jaw tense up? Did you start sweating? Did you stop making eye contact? Did you want to run away, or did you run away? Did you start drinking or eating something? So become aware of what you physically, mentally, verbally, and in everything that makes you do and react or respond to that trigger or that threat. The reason for doing this is, remember, you want to get out of your head and start to reconnect with your whole body, because your body is your true north, is your true compass. Okay. And then you want to ask yourself with compassion and love, why did I react this way? And you'll have an answer. It's because this person doesn't treat me right. This person doesn't respect me. This person doesn't know how to acknowledge me. This person doesn't know how to validate and make me feel seen and heard. My life was threatened when that car cut in front of me. I feel out of control when the 3 kids are going wild and I have limited time and I need to get through stuff after they've gone to bed and they don't want to sleep, so it's putting me under pressure because my time is being compromised. There's always a reason when you reflect on it. So now you've made sense of it. You've connected your brain with your body, and now it makes sense, okay? But we want to change the way you react so that you can empower yourself. So the next thing to do is to ask yourself, how would you have liked to respond? So maybe when the boss asks you to do another 10 things, but you already got so much on your plate, you learn to say no, respectfully. When the kids are going wild and the time is compromised, you still got a lot of work to do, maybe we got to ask hubby to step in and take over so that you can get to doing what you need to do, Elke. Or maybe it's about learning how to ask for help. You know, maybe the incident with the car accident is to drive a little bit slower so that when a car cuts in front of you, you have more control of the vehicle. So we will always have an answer of how we would have preferred to respond. Maybe if mom always triggers us, instead of reacting, we'll just say, Mom, I don't like the way that you speak to me, so I'm going to respectfully remove myself every time you speak to me like this from now on. I love you, but I deserve respect. But at this point, you're not actually doing that. You're just writing it down. And then the last thing you want to do is ask yourself, how would you feel doing that alternative? And you'll get an answer like, I'll feel more relaxed because in the case of Elke, I now have the time to go and do the stuff that I need to do. In the case of the car accident, when a car cuts in front of me, because I'm going slower, I don't have to hit brakes and get so excited. In the case of the example with the mom, I'm going to feel more relaxed and I'm going to feel empowered. I'm going to feel that I am deserving and I am also in need of respect, and that will make me feel more confident and will build my self-esteem. And you'll see that the more that you do this unpacking of the trigger exercise, what you're doing is you're reprogramming your mind to listen to the emotions, and naturally you will start to show up in the world as you have defined in number 6. And then you get resolve. And that is what Carl Jung, one of the famous psychiatrists who worked under Dr. Freud, called integration. Because when you become aware of what's going on underneath the experience, and you bring it into the conscious, and you reintegrate it in a way that serves you, you release yourself from the prison of that thing that it holds you in. So, Ndamulelo, are you there?
It looks like she is.
Maybe I debaucherized her name and she couldn't.
No, you didn't. Ndamo, are you there? I'm sure she'll pop back on when she can hear you, Veronique.
Okay. Now, because I was going to ask her now, because she had quite a nice example, I think that we can all relate to, where sometimes we desperately want somebody that we love to just validate and acknowledge us for something. And they just stand there like dead, dissociated, emotionally unavailable people. So I was going to ask her maybe to give it a go and apply this unpacking the trigger example for us. But those of you who were in that discussion, does somebody else want to give it a try? No one can make mistakes here. This is the place to play.
You want an example?
Yeah, so of a trigger?
It's like an unexpected call. Somebody says to you, like you're trying to do something, and that person says, no, you are not the right person to represent the company. We want a black male professional to do that.
Okay. So
And
what?
you so
Sorry,
you're doing something great, and something just, say something to you, like I lost my words,
Okay. So so the trigger, what in that example was the trigger for you? Was it that you felt not good enough? Was it that you felt the race thing was brought up unfairly in your perspective? What was the trigger for you? What made your blood boil?
Because I was helping for something that I felt like I can do something great here. I can help. And then the person just told me that. I was not waiting for that because I didn't volunteer to do anything but help at that moment. I didn't volunteer to represent the company. I didn't volunteer to do anything, but I was offering my help. That's it.
Okay. So the trigger,
race thing or the gender was not that.
okay, so you felt dismissed for the help that you were offering.
Yes.
And the trigger was that all of this other stuff came as an excuse when really it's like, no, thank you, I don't need your help. That would have been okay, but this other stuff that kind of just pushed you out the way is what the trigger was.
Yes.
Okay. So what are the feelings that you felt?
It was not disrespected. It was like.
Do you want to go back to Will? Here we go.
Maybe there's some. Ignored. I was ignored. It was like somebody just, ignoring my help.
Okay, so you felt invisible, dismissed?
Dismissed, yes.
Okay, dismissed. Like, so the feeling...
Sorry, but we don't need your help. Like, you're not a useful person, so what you're doing is, it's nothing. Actually, we don't need you, yeah.
I see your mouth is kind of going like this. It's almost like you felt that the person was disgusted by you. Like,
yes, I felt like
you were made small.
Something wrong. Yeah, it seems like I did something wrong. Something that he didn't like. Like, you were helping me, really. I don't need your help. Like, he put me really down. Like he was very superior,
So condescending.
Yes, condescending. Yeah.
Okay, so dismissive, dismissed, and condescending. Those are the
devaluing my action. Yeah.
Devalued. Okay, so dismissed, devalued, and condescended. Those were the feelings that you felt.
Yes.
So if you look at those three feelings, what do you believe are the core emotions attached to those feelings?
Sadness and anger. Anger with me, not with him. I was angry with myself. Okay. Because I thought to myself, I'm so stupid. Yeah.
Okay, so can you see that that's your critic putting you down, which is somebody else's voice? You're allowed to feel what you're feeling, and you're allowed to connect with that core emotion. Now, let me tell you something very interesting. Anger shows up when we want to protect ourselves. Isn't that fascinating? Because the scenario you describe is kind of going, if you stand back from it, I am good enough. I was offering my help and you just pushed me out the way. So can you see that anger would show up because, whoa, hold on a second. There's no need to push me around or dismiss me. I come in peace kind of thing. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
What's also interesting is that anger usually comes hand in hand with fear, because when we want to protect ourselves, there is something that we're afraid of. And the truth is nobody likes to be dismissed. Nobody likes to be devalued. Nobody likes to be condescended, because every person in this world, no matter who you are and where you came from, deserves a place in this world. Okay. So you have the full right to have felt angered and to have felt sad, but also to feel fear, because the fear is where the stress and anxiety comes from. Okay. So now if we go a bit deeper, why do you think, and I've already touched on a few of those things, but on a physical or physiological or verbal level, how did you react or respond to that dismissive, condescending, devaluing information that you got from this gentleman?
I was like speechless, and then I tried to find an answer quickly to him. I said, look, I spoke with this other person that he referred that he would be the better representative of the company, and he's aware of that. I tried to defend myself, actually.
Okay.
Yes, I felt like I was doing something wrong. Yes.
Yes. And defensiveness shows up when we are scared. We try to defend ourselves when we get scared. So can you see how stress and anxiety now comes into the picture? Can you see that? Okay. Because when you try to defend yourself, you're afraid. You've suddenly gone into afraid mode, but actually you were angry and sad because of what was told to you. So you dissociated from your anger and your sadness, and you let fear or stress and anxiety overwhelm you in that moment, and you got defensive. But I was just sent here, but I was just trying to help. And you played into his disempowering attitude towards you. Did you notice any physical or physiological symptoms in your body?
I remember my mind was like blank, like, what do I do now? I kind of like, yes, I was kind of shocked. I was surprised with the answer because I was not waiting for that.
Okay. So now if your job and your livelihood and your income, if nothing depended on what happened in this situation, and you had have acted out of your core emotions that you named as anger and sadness, okay, what do you understand your reason to be for how you actually reacted to him? Can you see that it was fear?
Yes. Yes, I was trying to defend myself, to figure out what was my mistake. And I felt like I was doing something that I'm not willing to do anymore. He just, I'm not willing to do anything like that in the future anymore. Yeah.
I understand. Okay,
And
so
I felt like I shouldn't even start that initiative.
So you felt defeated?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if you look at the previous slide where we discussed the 4 ways that we react to stress: freeze, flight, fight, or pleaser. When you went into defensive mode, you tried to calm and please the situation. When that didn't work, you just kind of shut down and went into freeze mode because you felt defeated. Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
But if the world was your oyster and you didn't have to defend yourself and you didn't have to feel defeated and you had acted upon your anger and your sadness, what would you have liked to do, or how would you have preferred to respond that was more aligned and true to who you are, so that you felt empowered?
I think I would say, look, I'm just trying to help, because this opportunity is in another country that I spoke the language, so I was trying to help because of my language skills. And then I would say, that's it. I'm not volunteer to anything. I'm just trying to help.
Okay, look what happened there. With conviction, you said, I was here to help you. If you don't want my help, I'm okay with that. And then you walk away. But can you see that when you speak from your truth, it's very simple. Your body doesn't get all shaken up. You remain centered. Your power stays with you. There's no need to defend yourself and make excuses. And what you're answering is just as it is, with love, with grace, with confidence, and you keep your wholeness. Can you see that?
Yes.
So if you had responded in that way, how do you think you would have felt then after that situation?
I think I would feel better, and I feel like free, like to do that anymore, unless somebody asks me to help. Please, can you help me with that?
Absolutely.
But not help like I did, volunteer to do something at the end of the day. Oh, we don't need you, you know.
Absolutely. And I love that you've said that. I would have felt free. I would have walked away from that. It would have been, that thing happened, it's over there, it's done with, and life would have carried on. It wouldn't have ruffled you or disrupted you. It wouldn't have made you question yourself or your ability or your comparison. You would have remained in your center. So having gone through this exercise, and thank you for volunteering, Juliana, and having the courage and the vulnerability to share this little exercise with the whole group. That wasn't easy. That was brave. Thank you. But what I tried to demonstrate to you and the group here today is that by going through this exercise, journaling on it, can you see how when we understand why we did something, and then say, how would we have liked to do it and how would we have felt, it starts to reprogram our brain, because now you can see, shit, you know, oh, sorry, I just swore. Why did I react like that? Why did I get defensive? I have nothing to be defensive about. I know who I am. I know what I came here to do. I know what I was offering. The fact that he didn't want my help, fine, he's allowed to want my help or not want my help, but he doesn't need to be a douche about it. So I'm not going to fall into that reactive state in future, because that gives me stress and anxiety. I'm going to remind myself, what do I actually want to say here? I'm offering my help. If you don't want it, that's okay. Walk away, done. And in that way, I feel empowered, I feel confident, and I feel free. So by bringing this into our conscious awareness and doing this unpacking the trigger exercise on a regular basis, starts to reprogram our mind and put us back into our own power. Can you see that, Juliana? Did you experience that with this exercise?
Yes, I did. And yeah, it's just a way to break my own paradigms, the way that I behave, as you said, is the program we have in our heads, in our minds.
And that is exactly it. That is exactly it. So what I wanted to demonstrate with you guys is how the feelings that we think we're feeling, which are coupled with a story in our head, can sabotage us and cause stress and anxiety. Like in this example, it was, you know, why is he devaluing me? Why is he dismissing me? I was just trying to help, and then we become a victim. When we unpack it this way, we start to quieten those victim kind of patterns, paradigms, stories, narratives, associations that we have. And we go, hold on a second. I know what I am. I know who I am. I know what I was offering. He doesn't have to take my help. I know that. He didn't take my help. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. I leave. In that way, I feel free, empowered, and it's done. Okay. And the advice that I have, if you're willing to take some, all of you guys on the group today, this little unpacking the trigger exercise, if you make a habit on a daily basis, have a little journal next to your bed like this one. I have one next to my bed as well. And just using these 6 questions or these 6 prompts, just ask yourself, what are 3 negative trigger examples that I experienced today? And they can be big or small. And then unpack them in this way and see how your life starts to change in terms of stress and anxiety. Miss Ndlovu raised her or his hand. I can't see your picture, so I don't know if it's a he or a she.
It's a she. Good evening, everyone.
I just want to say, I love the fact that your name is an elephant. Elephants are my favorite. Okay.
All right. Pleasure. You know, the other thing that can cause anxiety in the working place is that when you experience constant rejection of ideas, when your ideas are being rejected constantly, it's for the first time when it happens, you can deal with it, and say, it's okay. But when it's repeating itself, that is when it becomes toxic to us and impose stress and anxiety. Because we find ourselves in an environment where we are not the same in terms of character. There are people whom you will find that I know everything. You don't have to tell me nothing. I can do this. All those characters that we are meeting, they are really demoralizing other employees. And that's why we usually experience stress and anxiety.
Okay, so the stress and anxiety that you're experiencing is within your control. The situation that you're in is to a degree within your control because you can choose to be there. You can also choose to not be there. That's a choice. So if the ongoing environment that you're in is a source of frustration and anxiety for you, then a question you might want to ask yourself is, do I want to be in this environment or not? And if I don't want to be in this environment, then you've got to look at alternatives. Because some things outside of ourselves, most things outside of ourselves are not within our control, and we cannot change them or control them. So we can either remove ourselves from those environments, or we can change the way that we engage with those environments. So Miss Ndlovu, I can't see what your first name is, so I hope you don't mind that I'm calling you Miss Ndlovu, but I like that because it's an elephant. Would you like to take that trigger that you voiced here and work through this unpack the trigger exercise and see if something pops up, or can we move on?
I think we can move on.
Okay.
I will do it on my own and see if I've learned from Galliana experience and example in terms of placing it around.
Okay. What I can pick up when you were expressing yourself, and your anxiety and stress is absolutely valid, by the way. If you time and time again propose ideas that are being shot down or ignored or just dismissed, it is demotivating. It makes you not want to do, it probably makes you want to not do anything. So you can keep putting ideas and things out of there, but how can you present those in a way that you will be heard and at least respected for what you're bringing to the table? So I'm sensing when you were sharing your story that you were frustrated and irritated. And I'm guessing, you'd have to do the exercise yourself, but I'm guessing that beneath that is anger. anger that I'm not being seen, anger that I'm not being heard, anger that I'm not having my suggestions and thoughts and ideas even considered, never mind used. So if that is the premise, where else in your life does that maybe play a pattern, that where you are not seen and heard? And how do you find your voice in a respectful way that will ensure that you do get heard? Maybe the way you present your ideas or suggestions, there could be a different technique or a different way of bringing them to the table that demands attention, or that doesn't block you out or make you invisible. So just a few things to think about and consider. But yes, that is a source of stress and anxiety, and even sadness, because it's horrible to be invisible. All right, so just to get to how, apart from the trigger exercise and learning to get back into your body and connect with your emotions, because obviously stress and anxiety is 100% linked to emotions and feelings. So some of the obvious ways that you can relieve stress and anxiety is to exercise consciously. And consciously means I'm aware that I am stressed, I'm aware that I'm filled with anxiety, and I am exercising with the intention to release that. So you actually consciously think that. And you'll find that walking, when you start walking when you're frustrated or stressed or whatever, the more you walk and the more you look around at things, you start, like that frown starts to go, the body language starts to change, you start to feel more open, and then by the time you come back, you might be tired, but you won't feel stressed. So conscious exercise is a way to relieve stress and anxiety immediately. I do know that when we are stressed or filled with anxiety, the last thing we want to do is go for a walk. But that's when you want to go and walk, because that's when it's going to make the biggest difference. Okay. Anger release, because you would have noticed the example that Ms. Ndlovu and Juliana brought to the table as an example of stress and anxiety, also had a lot of anger underpinning it. Frustration and anger and irritation underpinning it. So learning to release anger in a healthy, conscious way is also great. So Ms. Ndlovu, that person that keeps rejecting your ideas, if you can imagine in your head, you probably want to punch them, because this is the 100,000th time I've now given an idea and you don't even want to listen to me. So instead of thinking that, go and get a hold of a boxing bag, imagine that person's face on that boxing bag, and punch the crap out of that bag. And you'll be amazed at how much better you feel. And I know it sounds crazy, but it really does work. So by no means am I saying you must punch anyone or get violent, but being aware of our frustration and our anger energy inside of us, just going and punching a boxing bag for 10 minutes. There's also a place in Bryanston, I think it's called Smash Things or something like that, where you can actually go by yourself or with a group of people and smash things. They'll give you computers and phones and plates and baseball bats, and you literally go and you smash stuff up, because sometimes you just need to smash stuff. And if you don't get that energy out of your body, it comes up in places where you don't want it to, and usually with people that you love, who you feel safe with. Of course, conscious mindfulness and meditation is another way. And again, I understand that people who are not familiar with meditation or with mindfulness, it takes a little bit of practice. The quickest way is to close your eyes, to breathe in for 4 counts, then hold your breath for 7 counts, and then breathe out for 8 counts. And that right there is mindful breathing, where you close your eyes and you just concentrate on the counting, the breathing in, the holding the breath, and the breathing out. And do that 10 times. Immediately you bring your cortisol, your stress, and your anxiety levels down. Music is another wonderful way of calming stress and anxiety immediately. If you're feeling stressed and anxious, you don't want music playing, because it's just going to make you more stressed and anxious. You want to find some music that has a soothing, calming effect on you, whatever that may be. At the same time, if you want to release some anger, then you probably want to play something that gets you screaming or angry. Go sit in the car, or just release some of that. Kids are a great teacher, actually. If you look at a 2-year-old who wants to express stress or anxiety or anger, what does a 2-year-old do? Lie on its back and go, "Eee." I promise you, the next time you feel stressed or angry or anxious, just do that. And you'll see, immediately you just feel better afterwards. Okay, visualizations are another way. For those of you who have things like Spotify or access to YouTube, there's millions of visualizations. You can just look up 10-minute visualization to relax, 10-minute visualizations to de-stress. Find one that doesn't irritate you. Find a voice or a person that speaks that has a calming effect on your being. And just close your eyes and take 10 minutes to listen to a visualization. Sound and using your mind as a way to go somewhere else for a few moments gives your body permission to decompress, and it helps you to come back to a de-stressed space. Water, for those of you who like water, swimming, just lying back, floating in water, even just for a few minutes, just floating, feeling that sense of freedom through floating, helps your being to get back into that physical state as well. For those of us who don't swim or don't float, even just standing in a shower, closing your eyes and consciously feeling the water droplets on your skin, on your body, and imagining that with each water droplet, you take the stress and anxiety out of your body, whatever the thoughts are that are running in your head, and imagine them getting into those water droplets and washing down the drain. There you have your own visualization. Grounding exercises, literally just sitting down and going, what are 5 things that I see? 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can smell, 2 things I can taste, and how do I feel right now? That helps you get grounded almost immediately, because when we are stressed and anxious, we are running our mind so much that we can't even stop and see or hear what's going on around us in that moment, because we're literally seeing red. We're no longer rational. Okay, in the very beginning when we started chatting, one of the ladies mentioned that sugar had an impact on her stress and anxiety levels, and that is absolutely true. Most of us, and particularly a lot of you who are career women, might take shortcuts in terms of getting ready-made meals, or there's a lot of people in high executive positions that love Woolworths ready-made meals that they can just pop into the oven and so on. But a lot of these ready-made meals and fast foods and stuff come with high levels of sugar and are pumped full of things like preservatives, hormones, and a lot of the nutrition has actually gone out of it. And as crazy as it sounds, it is an absolute fact. It has a stressful effect on your body, because that food is not serving your body. Your body often doesn't even recognize it as food. So it causes inflammation in your gut. And when you have inflammation in your gut, you are immediately stressed and anxious as well. You might think it's something else outside of yourself, but it could actually just be the state of your gut. So if you battle with things like constipation, or sometimes you get diarrhea, or you have a bloated tummy, or you get pains here around your solar plexus, or sometimes in your back where it feels like heartburn, all those kind of things, know that what you're eating, your body is not happy with, and that also creates stress on your body. Raksha, you wanted to ask something?
No, not ask, just more of a comment. The grounding one about feet on the grass. I do that every other day at work. And I remember at the beginning, people used to judge me when they saw me taking my shoes off. And then now I don't care. But that connection with the grass, I 100% can attest to the effect that it has in terms of a calming effect, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
So
And from a scientific point of view, when you put your bare feet onto the ground, like the grass or the soil, it is proven scientifically. You can go and Google it. They've got electrodes and papers and stuff on this, that it actually neutralizes your body. If you happen to live
in quickly as well, which is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. If you live in an apartment, so you don't have a grassy patch or a piece of soil to put your feet into, another way to do it is to fill your bath up with water and then put a box of Epsom salts in there. Epsom salts or sea salt. And then spend some time in that water, because that also has the same grounding, neutralizing effect on your body. And Londeka, it was you that was saying you sometimes struggle to sleep, right?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. If you do have a bathtub, and get hold of some Epsom salts, not the bicarbonate of soda, the Epsom salts. The Epsom salts also have a lot of magnesium in. And if you just soak in that for 15 or 20 minutes before you go to sleep, your body absorbs that, and it also has a calming, relaxing effect on your body, and you might find you sleep better as well. So something to try there as well. Of course, spending time with friends and family is crucial. And when I say spending time with friends and family, people that allow you to be yourself. It doesn't mean that spending time with friends and family that you're doing out of duty, but that makes you feel like you have to show up as a version of yourself to keep the peace, or that you have to hide aspects of yourself to keep the peace, or that you keep quiet so that mom or dad don't shout at you. That is not spending time with friends and family. Friends and family are friends and family when you are allowed to be yourself, and they love and accept you for who you are, even when sometimes that is messy, and they love and accept you anyway. And then, of course, time management, which I forgot the other lady's name. She mentioned with having 3 kids and a full-time job, sometimes that's not so easy. So learning to ask for help so that we can manage time in a more effective way. So those are things that you can do to manage stress and anxiety by yourself immediately. But the trigger exercise and reconnecting with your body and understanding, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? What are the thoughts attached to this, and are they true or not? And what is the emotion that is coming up in my body, and why is that emotion coming up for me? What is it trying to tell me? And the trigger exercise. Those are the 2 exercises that will probably give you the quickest and most fundamental turnaround in terms of stress and anxiety. These ones on the screen right now add to you fast tracking that. However, if you feel that you are stuck and you've got resistance and barriers to all of those that we've already described, then you may probably need some therapy or counseling, because the resistance in you is probably so strong that you're not able to see your own blind spots. So then it's important to find somebody that you feel safe with, who you can trust, who's not a friend or a family member, and whose sole purpose is to hold space for you and facilitate that journey of stress or addiction or anxiety or anger for you, so that you can learn in a safe space with a safe person to become safe within yourself again by reprogramming yourself back towards your own unique true north. And that's it for today. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Veronique. That was incredibly insightful. I think we've all got a lot a lot to think about with that as well, and probably a hell of a lot we can all relate with more than anything.
Does anybody want to share some insights or gems that popped out that they can maybe use or enjoyed?
I thought about when you say like follow your gut feeling. Is that related to emotions and feelings? And also, we're trying to be more authentic with ourselves, isn't it?
So are you stating that, or are you asking a question? I'm not sure.
It's kind of a question comment.
Okay, I'm struggling to understand the question part. Help me out, please.
So it's all about to be more authentic with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Connecting emotions and feelings. And the other thing that came to my mind was when people say, no, follow your gut feeling so you get right. It's more or less that, or not? Or there's nothing to do with that?
Because when people say your gut, first of all, your gut is more and more described as your second brain. If your gut is not healthy, and if you're not aligned with your gut, it throws everything, hormones, everything out of whack. So there is actually a physical truth to that. But the listen to your gut is also listen to your body, because your body guides you. And I love that you've made that connection, because when anxiety and stress show up, it is your body's system drawing your attention to something that is happening here is not aligned with who I am and my safety. So instead of becoming a victim of it, you have the choice to go, okay, what is this situation telling me? And what is my body giving me as direction? And sometimes it means, you know what, I've got to quit my job. Sometimes it means swearing at the person. Sometimes it means assertively stating your case and walking away. But if you're in your head, you don't know what you need to do. And then when you do what you do, you're filled with shame, self-doubt, you question yourself. But when you listen to your truth, there is no doubt, because it just is. And that's the beauty of it. So by becoming aware of that and practicing more and more those trigger exercises and listening more and more to your body, what you're actually doing is empowering yourself. You're freeing yourself. You're stepping back into your truth and your uniqueness fearlessly, like the person you were born to be. If you look at babies, they don't go, oh, if I walk into this meeting, are they going to think my bum is big? You know, or if I say that, am I going to get rejected? Kids don't do that. Have you seen kids when they speak to each other? They just speak from their truth, and then they have a fight, and then the one is like angry, and then the other one is crying, and 5 seconds later, those same two kids are up a tree climbing together and having a party. You know, and somewhere along the line, we lost that. We lost that purity to listen to our truth and trust it, and we got stuck in our head. So learning to get back into our body is where the liberation is. It's not in the drugs, in the food, in the binges, in the meds. Those are all just crutches that keep us dissociated from our truth and our body and our direction. Yeah. Anyone else have something to share?
Yes, I just have to say thanks so much for the inspiring talk, and that I will go in my garden now barefoot and stand on the grass.
Awesome. That's great. And I love the smile. I think the kids have gone to bed. Yeah. Okay. Raksha, also in the spirit of all the ladies that are here, I also want to extend a discounted rate to everyone for any services. So anybody, this is standard. So it's not a sales pitch or anything. It's just so that you guys know, If ever you need someone to talk to, or you need counseling, or you need coaching, or you want to do a personal development course, by default, if you are a WIMSA member or you attended one of these talks, you get 13% discount on whatever you decide to do. And 13 is the number said to represent the divine feminine, because it corresponds to the 13 lunar menstrual cycles in a year. And that's why it's 13% discount, because we're all ladies and we're all trying to empower each other. And that is why. So yeah, if anyone needs that, I am here for you. Just call. And then
thank you so much, Veronique.
Thanks, Raksha. And then I did see I saw your email, but I saw it after I did my slides. So for next month, I'll just swap the other one with this one. For next month, we'll do how to ditch the drama in your relationships. And I think we've all had our fair share of drama in relationships, whether work-wise or personal. So next month's chat's going to be how to ditch the drama in your relationships. Is that okay, Raksha?
I must just remember what we agreed, but yeah, that's great. That's cool.
Okay. We'll have a chat. If it's a problem, I can change it. I just saw your email after I'd done the slides, so.
No worries, we'll chat. That's perfect.
All
Ladies,
right,
thank you so much for joining. I mean, we really appreciate it. And Veronique, thank you for always making the time. I think that's the thing that's the most precious of everything, to be very honest. And yeah, lots for us to think about and reflect as well. So thank you. These sessions are very, very insightful. I hope all the other ladies that are on got something positive out of it as well. Yeah, and we'll see you next month.
I just want to say that, I had my own personal journey in terms of mental, physical, emotional health. I grew up with Crohn's disease, and I always entrusted myself in specialists and doctors and stuff. And I wish that I had had a lot of this knowledge 20, 30 years ago, because it would have saved me so much frustration, and it would have empowered me in ways that it could have, which it is now, but it didn't for the last 20 years. So it is an absolute pleasure to be able to share my knowledge with others. And I hope that, other people benefit from it and find release and relief so that they don't have similar struggles. Because it ultimately, this system that God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, gave to us is so powerful. But we've just learned to stop listening to it. And health, anxiety, stress, and all of that, it's all a manifestation of that disconnect. And the more we learn to understand it, the more you free yourself, and life actually truly does become beautiful and magical again.
Isn't that our ultimate goal? So that's something we have to work toward.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thanks
We'll
so
see
much,
you
everyone.
next time.
Veronique, thank you so much.
Alrighty. Do you want to chat to me afterwards, or are we all good to go?
Yeah. That's all good. Cool.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for
Thank you.
showing
Bye.
up.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.